Good afternoon. It's Thursday, the 12th of March. I'm Erin Viner, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. We open with election developments and heightened concern at the ruling Likud party that it might lose the election just 5 days from now. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today actually conceded that the center-left opposition could win. Here to update us is IBA's political correspondent Eli Wogelenter.
Prime Minister Netanyahu warned that Israel's security is at great risk because there's a real danger that we could lose this election. This as the latest opinion polls continue to show momentum shifting to the Zionist Union after weeks of running neck and neck with Likud. Netanyahu launched a media blitz today to try to bring back those who have abandoned his party, saying that if Likud is not the biggest party, the left will win control and form a coalition with the support of the Arab Party. Every vote that goes to a party that isn't Likud, from the right or the left, endangers a national camp victory. Senior Likud figures are now acknowledging that they face a major defeat on Tuesday. Something isn't going the way it should, a source in Likud told Haaretz. Netanyahu's speech to Congress last week should have created a turning point for us and strengthened Likud in the polls. The latest poll published today by Haaretz shows a solid three-mandate lead for Zionist Union, 24-21. The Joint Arab list is polling at 13 seats, Yesh Atid at 12, Kulanu polling at a surprising 11 mandates after showing much lower numbers for the last month. They're tied with Bayit Yehudi, which has dropped to 11. Shas is at 7, United Torah Judaism and Meretz at 6, Yachad Ha'am Itanu 5, and Yeshua Beitenu just crossing the threshold at 4. All the parties are scrambling to offset votes going to others who have similar philosophies. Shas Chairman Aryeh Deri clarified his party's position today on sitting in a left-wing government led by Isaac Herzog, following a headline in Haaretz yesterday saying Shas doesn't rule out coalition with Herzog. Deri made clear that he did not rule out Herzog personally, only that he will not sit in a narrow left-wing government. A number of final polls will be released tonight and tomorrow, which is the last day allowed for polls to be published. And then we're left holding our breath. Erin?
Thanks for that report. And in other campaign-related news, tens of thousands of ultra-Orthodox Jews attended a rally in Bnei Brak yesterday in a bid to bolster support for the United Torah Judaism faction and encourage the party faithful to get out and vote. The event was held to counter the efforts of a Haredi group known as the Jerusalem Wing that allegedly has been using tactics designed to intimidate members of the community into refusing to cast their ballots in a protest against Zionism. Ultra-Orthodox political leaders are particularly hopeful that there will be a large turnout of their supporters this election so that they would be able to challenge policies of the outgoing government, which passed legislation to draft Haredi men into military service, reform the conversion process, and cut various state-supported budgets that are enjoyed by the religious sector. And as mentioned earlier, law stipulates that all political polling of the public must end 3 days prior to the holding of elections, meaning that the last results of the final surveys will be released tomorrow. Joining me now to discuss the latest findings is the CEO of TNS Telesecker, Stella Karayov. Hi, Stella. Thanks for coming back.
Hi, Erin.
It's good to see you. All right, now your own company, I know, will be releasing its final poll later this evening. Yeah. And I know you can't really talk about it or address it specifically, but maybe you can tell us if your results are consistent with what we're seeing right now, which is around a 3-seat lead by Zionist Union over Likud.
I can't tell you the difference between the Zionist unit and Likud, but I can tell that the trend shows that the Zionist unit is really in increase and Likud is... Benjamin Netanyahu maybe has some worries.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And he seems to know it.
Yeah.
How significant at this point, just days away from the election, is the block of undecided voters?
Well, the block of undecided voters is about 15 to 20% in general. Now, as we know, it equals around 10 to 12 mandates, 10 to 12 seats. So part of the undecided voters won't vote in any case. Mm-hmm. Around 40 to 50% won't vote eventually. Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay. In a 2013 election, Yesh Atid was the big surprise winner. They had 19 mandates. They were really the second place finish. This time they started out kind of far down, and lately then there was a surge.
Yeah.
Are they going to continue to rise, or have those numbers peaked?
At the moment, we don't see them rise more than the last poll shows. But some people do make the decisions within the Kalpi before just putting the note. So everything can happen, but they won't be the biggest surprise of these elections as they were in last elections. Since they're and Kahlon with Kulanu are really fighting for the same ideology and the same vote. The voters are different though, but in a way they're both in the center. So it's kind of a zero-sum game eventually.
So who do you think will be the big surprise? Which party is going to really surprise us?
I think that the surprise will be of the parties who might fall off threshold. This might be a surprise for the small parties or the parties that at the moment in the polls are holding 4 seats. So that might be a surprise, and then we all will have a big problem because it's not the 2 seats of previous elections, but 4 seats altogether.
Well, right now, for several parties, including Meretz, Yahad, and perhaps even Israel Beitenu, right now they appear to barely be crossing that threshold. Do you think that those parties are going to make it into the next Knesset?
At the moment, the numbers show that they are going to make it at the Knesset. But everything can happen on the day of elections.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know I asked you this last time, but I'd like to have you repeat in case it's changed. Can you outline for us what you think that the coalition governments would look like, first, if a Zionist Union wins, because maybe things have changed since I last spoke to you, and what it would look like if Netanyahu is able to pull it out and, get the voters and actually win?
Well, at the moment, it looks like it will be difficult for Netanyahu to pull out the coalition, not because the right wing is smaller than the left wing, but because of the difference in the seats between Netanyahu and Herzog. But eventually, if Herzog will pull the coalition, so it takes Yesh Atid together with the Meretz, of course, and there's a question, Kahlon might join them as well, but there is a big question about the religious parties. So if I think that Yadut Torah, which is, I don't know how you say it in English, the Yadut Torah.
But United Torah Judaism.
Okay. So they might join as well, since they're not saying they're not going to sit with Herzog.
That's right.
They didn't declare so. But Shas, it's a question if Shas is going to join them. If they're going to add Shas with them together, without the Arab party, so it might come together for 57 seats altogether. Now, for the right wing, is much easier to pull a coalition because the right wing is much bigger.
Yeah.
Because they have much more parties on the right wing, and this is what it's all about. So,
Stella, I'm glad you came back, and I'm looking forward to your poll later tonight to see all the secret things you couldn't tell us right now. And we'll see you soon, hopefully. So
yes, and wish us luck on the day of elections with the exit polls that we're doing for Channel 1.
I can hardly wait. All right, Stella, thanks a lot. Thanks for coming in.
You. Right.
Now, many question how accurate the polling process really is, including Times of Israel editor David Horovitz, who says that there are several new factors this time around, and that the surveys may not be compensating for the changed political map.
Well, past experience suggests that they're not bad, but they're not spot on. And in our system, not being spot on can be quite significant because the particular arithmetic, we've got 11 parties there or thereabouts. In other words, either 11 will get in or something close to 11 will get in. And if you miss by a little bit, last time Yesh Atid mispredicted by a good few votes, did much better. This time you've got the Arab lists running together, and pollsters in Israel have not, let's put it this politely, I'm not sure they've always been particularly good in polling the Arab sector. You've got a raised electoral threshold. Right? It's now 3.25% of the vote nationwide, which means there will be no parties with fewer than 4 seats, which means if a party just fails to clear that threshold, then 130,000 votes or thereabout can go down the drain. And then those votes get redistributed across the spectrum. So if it's Eli Yishai's Yachad, then the left would benefit if they just fail. If it's Meretz, both those two parties have been around the 4s and the 5s and so on, then the right would benefit from that redistribution across. We're not talking about surplus votes between two parties that make it. We're talking about loads of votes that just disappear. And I think that because the potential implications of being a little bit off can be quite significant, you've got to be really wary about these polls. We don't know about turnout, for goodness sake. What turnout in the Arab sector? Turnout in the Jewish sector? Israelis, on the whole, not terribly interested in these elections, relatively speaking.
68-point-something% show up.
Yeah, well, what happens if it's, if it's 3 or 4% higher or 3 or 4% lower? What's going to be like in the Likud, which is interesting to me? A party where there's been so much internal division. Are they going to get the vote out? Is Jewish Home going to get its voters out? I suspect, if you had to bet, you'd say, well, Jewish Home seems like a more energized party at the moment than Likud. These kinds of things can really affect, it's not just what people are saying, who are you going to vote for? Well, are you actually going to turn up on the day? That all affects the result.
In other news, many questions remain over the execution of a 19-year-old Israeli Arab by the Islamic State in Syria. The radical group released a video purporting to show Mohammed Saeed Musallam being shot to death by a child in an empty field. A French-speaking terrorist seen threatening Israel and praising the child has been identified by French media as the half-brother of Mohammed Merah, who murdered a rabbi and 3 children in Toulouse at a Jewish school, as well as 3 French soldiers in March of 2012. Here in the Jerusalem neighborhood of Neve Yaakov, Musallam's family continues to mourn his death and deny that he was ever a Mossad agent, as claimed by ISIS to justify the murder. His father, Saeed, told the Jerusalem Post that he believes his son was killed for knowing too much, including maps, territories, locations, and everything about the terrorists, and blames them for tricking his son into joining the jihadi group. The longtime Egged bus driver stressed that he and his family stand with Israel because, he said, they live in a Jewish neighborhood where no one gives them any trouble or complications. He added his view that Muslims and Jews are family because both faiths share Abraham as the father, and he declared loyalty to the nation. He went on to say that he and his 3 other sons are prepared to fight the Islamic State alongside Israel. Bitter controversy over the Senate letter to Iranian leaders is intensifying. While speaking before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, an angry U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry condemned the initiative as wrong and said that it undermines American policy, while Republicans continue to defend the move. 47 of the party's legislators wrote to Iranian leaders, warning that the next president could revoke any nuclear deal with Tehran and that future Congresses have the right to modify the terms of the agreement at any time.
My reaction to the letter was utter disbelief. During my 29 years here in the Senate, I never heard of, nor even heard of it being proposed, anything comparable to this. If I had, I can guarantee you, no matter what the issue and no matter who was president, I would have certainly rejected it. I think no one is questioning anybody's right to dissent. Any senator can go to the floor any day and raise any of the questions that were raised in that. But the right to the leaders in the middle of a negotiation, particularly the leaders that they have criticized other people for even engaging with or writing to write them and suggest that they're going to give a constitutional lesson, which, by the way, was absolutely incorrect, is quite stunning. This letter ignores more than 2 centuries of precedent in the conduct of American foreign policy. We've been clear from the beginning. We're not negotiating a, quote, legally binding plan. We're negotiating a plan that will have in it a capacity for enforcement.
Members of Congress every single day communicate with members of other countries, with presidents and heads of other countries, with secretaries of state and foreign ministers from other countries. It is done regularly. Every time Congress has a recess, loads of airplanes leave Andrews Air Force Base with dozens of members of Congress who go directly and meet face-to-face with these heads of state. This letter was nothing more. We have constitutional responsibilities that we as elected officials of this first branch of government are required to meet. The problem we've got here is we have a real disagreement over the talk regarding this treaty And let there be no mistake, this is a treaty that is being negotiated.
So why do I sign this letter? I sign this letter because I sign it to an administration that doesn't listen, to an administration that every turn tries to go around Congress because you think you can't get your way. The president says, oh, the Congress won't do what I want, so I've got a pen and I've got my phone, I'm going to do what I want. The letter was to you. The letter was to Iran, but it should have been CC'd to the White House because the White House needs to understand that any agreement that removes or changes legislation will have to be passed by us.
Speaking before the same committee, American Defense Secretary Ash Carter said that the request from U.S. President Barack Obama to Congress for the authorization of military force against the Islamic State could be expanded to include other groups in the region, such as those pledging allegiance to ISIS in Libya, as well as the Boko Haram in Nigeria. Testifying alongside Carter, Secretary of State Kerry said that the plan would permit military engagement against Islamic State forces within Syria, but not against troops loyal to the country's president, Bashar al-Assad.
This is ISIL specific. There are those who wish it would include Assad, but it doesn't. We are supporting the moderate opposition, however, very directly in the efforts that are focused on Assad. And the Congress, and we're grateful for it, has approved of the training and equip program. Some $500 million have been appropriated, and that program is about to be up and running. In addition to that, there are other activities, as you know, that are focused on the issue of President Assad. But specific to the AUMF is ISIL-specific, and it does not authorize activities against Assad.
Saudi Arabia and Sweden are in a diplomatic tussle over Stockholm's criticism of Riyadh's human rights record. In the latest escalation, Sweden announced the cancellation of a long-standing defense contract with the Saudis after the monarchy withdrew its ambassador from Stockholm. Earlier, the Saudis blocked a slated speech by Swedish Foreign Minister Margot Wallström to the Arab League on the subjects of human rights and democracy, after she told her parliament that the government in Riyadh is a dictatorship that systematically violates women's and human rights. The suspended defense agreement includes military systems, training, and transfers of technology that are valued at $561 million. Here at home, the general strike in the South was prevented, or at least delayed, thanks to a last-minute agreement between the sides. The National Labor Court mediated an agreement putting the dismissal of any Israel Chemicals workers on hold for 2 weeks, while talks will be held between the parties, who will report on the status of the negotiations to the president of the Labor Court. Nevertheless, strikes at several southern factories are continuing as planned. Histadrut Chairman Avi Nissenkorn said that the main demand of the Labor Federation is that the firings of hundreds of employees be taken off the table. The general strike was planned to bring attention to what Southern residents consider to be the government's neglect of the periphery. In a move to aid the battered economy in Gaza, produce from the territory was imported into the country today for the first time since Hamas seized control in 2007. 27 tons of tomatoes and 5 tons of eggplant have been cleared to leave the coastal enclave for Israel. Before the bloody Hamas coup over its Palestinian Fatah rival nearly 8 years ago, Gaza merchants used to export hundreds of tons of vegetables and fruit into the country on a daily basis. Since the end of last summer's war with Gaza, the government has increased the number of entry permits granted to Gaza merchants for travel to the West Bank and Israel for business purposes, and also allowed for greater exports of textile and furniture. Authorities say that additional items will later be marketed along with the tomatoes and eggplant, with about 1,500 tons of Gaza produce expected monthly. Now turning to sports, and the capital is gearing up for the 5th International Jerusalem Marathon, with more than 25,000 runners slated to sprint across the starting line tomorrow morning. The 42-kilometer race snakes through the city and is expected to largely paralyze many sections of town where streets will be closed to traffic. IBA's Aria O'Sullivan brings us this look at preparations for the event.
It's a major operation in the city, which has been decked out in flags and police barricades, ready for the opening of the grueling Jerusalem Marathon at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Gan Sacher has been turned into the main compound where runners will prepare for the start. The marathon winds through the streets of Jerusalem, passing some of the 3,000-year-old city's most iconic sites, including inside the old walled city. Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat, who is also running the half marathon, says the race in this city is breathtaking, not just for the views, but also because of its notorious steep hills. It's daunting for some of the even most veteran runners.
We're a little bit intimidated by the hills. Everybody tells us that it's very, very hilly, but we're willing to give it a try.
It couldn't be a nicer city in all the world to be running.
How many marathons have you run?
We've done a number over the years. We've done lots of marathons, lots of half marathons, and we've never done Jerusalem before. So first time, and hopefully we'll be back often.
There are some 2,200 participants who came from over 60 countries to run.
I already spent several days in your country, so everything is so stunning. So I'm not scared at all.
How many marathons have you done?
This one could be my second one.
Well, are you scared about running in Jerusalem?
I am, because it's very hilly. I'm used to flat running.
Have you been training for this?
Not at all. It's been minus 20 degrees at home for the last month, so I haven't run outside. So
you must be excited.
I'm excited. It'll be fun.
Jerusalem officials see the event as a major tourist endeavor that will hopefully fill the hotel rooms and inject over 10 million shekels into the city's economy while placing the City of Gold on the world's map of marathons. The country is caught up in election fever, and in just a few days, Israelis will go to the polls to vote. But here in Jerusalem, they're in the midst of preparations for the 5th annual International Marathon. It'll cause havoc, the schools will be shut, there'll be heavy traffic. But if all goes according to plan, some 25,000 runners, including 2,000 from abroad, will be trotting through the streets of the capital. I'll be there too. Tune in tomorrow to find out if I make it to the finish line. Aryeh O'Sullivan for IBA News.
Break a leg, Aryeh, or maybe not. Good luck. In the meantime, taking a look at local finance, and the shekel today gained strength against all major foreign currencies, and share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange put in a mixed performance. Here's a look at the afternoon numbers. The IBA weather team tells us that later this evening we can expect further light isolated rain showers in the north and along the coast, but that precipitation should level off by afternoon tomorrow, when we should also see slightly warmer temperatures. Here's the forecast at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. This programming note before leaving you is part of our election coverage on March 17th. In addition to our daily news at 4, IBA English News will be bringing you a special election night broadcast next Tuesday at 11:30 p.m. with all of the early results. In the meantime, I'll be back tomorrow to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a great evening and shalom from Jerusalem.